Every Marvel fan has a villain they think is the scariest. Maybe it's Thanos, sitting on his throne with half the universe's population already dead. Maybe it's Galactus, drifting through space, looking for the next planet to consume. Maybe it's Carnage, just absolute chaos wearing a red symbiote like a second skin. And all of those are fair answers. But there are beings in Marvel Comics so far above those threats that comparing them is almost funny. Beings that didn't fight the Avengers, didn't monologue at Spider-Man, didn't even bother acknowledging that Earth existed most of the time. Beings that looked at the entire Marvel multiverse, every universe, every timeline, every version of every hero and villain you have ever cared about, and decided to end all of it simultaneously as an experiment. And they succeeded. This is the story of the Beyonders, the only villains in Marvel history who actually destroyed the multiverse, and the insane, desperate, nearly impossible story of the few people who managed to do something about it. And let's start at the very beginning, because the Beyonders' origin is genuinely one of the wildest things Marvel has ever committed to paper. They weren't always called the Beyonders. In the beginning, they were called the Omegas, created by the Celestial following the Celestial War that ended the Second Cosmos, which was the first multiverse that ever existed. After that multiverse died, these beings stayed behind in the remnants of it, outside every multiverse that came afterward, watching, maintaining, sustaining the structure of reality from the outside while other cosmic forces maintained it from within. For billions of years, that was the arrangement. The Beyonders sat in the beyond space, essentially the space between multiverses, observing the Marvel universe the way you might observe fish in a tank, with curiosity, with detachment, without any particular investment in the fish. Now here's where things get disturbing. At some point, the Beyonders decided to run an experiment, not a small one, not a localized one, an experiment on the scale of the entire Marvel multiverse involving every single universe simultaneously, engineered across billions of years of careful setup. The experiment was this: the complete, simultaneous destruction of all life in the multiverse. Every universe, every reality, every possible world wiped out at the exact same moment, not because they hated it, not out of malice or revenge or wounded pride, just to see what would happen, because they could, because to a being that exists outside the very concept of the multiverse is just a thing to study, and sometimes you end the study, and the mechanism they chose to do it with is one of the most chilling concepts Marvel has ever introduced. The Molecule Man. Owen Reese, the Molecule Man, is one of Marvel's most quietly terrifying characters. A man with the ability to manipulate matter and energy at the molecular level, effectively giving him the power to reshape reality itself. He's been around since the 1960s, treated as a mid-tier villain for most of his history, a guy with absurd power who never quite felt like a top-tier threat. But here's the truth the Beyonders had known all along. His origin wasn't an accident. The Molecule Man's power didn't come from a random industrial mishap. The Beyonders engineered it. They created Owen Reese specifically, deliberately, as a living bomb. A singularity, a being whose existence was a fault line running through a specific universe, and whose death would cause that universe to collapse entirely. And here's the part that makes this truly diabolical. There wasn't just one Molecule Man. There was one in every single universe in the Marvel multiverse. Every reality had its own Owen Reese, each one a slightly different version, each one carrying the same fundamental nature, the same engineered potential for total destruction. Billions of universes, billions of Molecule Men, each one a bomb waiting to be detonated. The Beyonders' plan was simple, and it was perfect. Set them all off at once. Every bomb, every universe simultaneously. The simultaneous death of everything in the multiverse in their own words. No universe survives because no universe gets the warning that another one was destroyed first. You can't prepare for a threat you can't see coming, because by the time the first one goes off, all the rest already have too. It's not a weapon, it's a mechanism. Clean, elegant, absolute. And it was already in motion before anyone on Earth had any idea it existed. The first sign that something was catastrophically wrong came in the form of what Marvel called incursions. Universes started colliding with each other, their borders dissolving, each collision destroying both realities involved. The point of impact was always the same: the Earth of each universe crashing into the Earth of another. Heroes on both sides would scramble to stop it. Sometimes they succeeded, more often they didn't, and with every collision the multiverse got smaller. a group of Marvel's smartest and most powerful heroes. The Illuminati, including Iron Man, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Black Bolt, and Beast, discovered what was happening and started trying to manage it. They built machines. They made terrible choices. They destroyed other Earths to save their own, carrying the weight of that knowledge in secret, fractured by the moral cost of what they were doing. The Avengers didn't know. The X-Men didn't know. The world didn't know. Just this small group of brilliant haunted men watching the multiverse collapse one universe at a time and knowing they couldn't stop it. Because they didn't know about the Beyonders yet. They were fighting the symptom without knowing the disease. The moment the truth came out was one of the most devastating in the entire run. Hank Pym, Yellow Jacket, one of the original Avengers, was sent on a mission to find the source of the Incursions. He shrank down to subatomic scale and traveled through the quantum realm trying to find answers. What he found instead was the Beyonders, and what they told him, casually and without particular concern for how he'd receive it, was that they had been behind everything. The Incursions, the multiverse collapse, all of it, their plan, their experiment, their timeline. And then he came back to Earth and had to tell everyone what was coming, that the thing killing the multiverse wasn't a villain they could punch, wasn't a threat they could outthink, wasn't even something that existed within the same frame of reality they did. It was beings from outside existence itself who had been engineering this moment for longer than human civilization had existed, using tools they'd planted billions of years ago. Before the Beyonders even showed themselves properly, they demonstrated exactly what they were dealing with. They killed the Living Tribunal. If you're not familiar with the Living Tribunal, understand this. It is one of the most powerful entities in all of Marvel, a cosmic judge of impossible scale, existing across all realities simultaneously. Its purpose to maintain the balance of the multiverse. It is, by most measures, the second most powerful being in Marvel behind only the one above all. It has never been truly defeated. Nothing in the history of the comics had ever actually managed to kill it. The Beyonders killed it. 3 of them, working together, killed the Living Tribunal simultaneously across every reality in the multiverse. Not one instance of it, all at once. And after that, they went through the cosmic hierarchy. The Celestials, Eternity, Infinity, Lord Chaos, Master Order, the In-Betweener, killing abstract entities and cosmic beings across every universe, clearing the board of anything powerful enough to theoretically interfere with their plan. When the dust settled on that particular sequence of events, there was effectively nothing left in the Marvel cosmic hierarchy above them. They had executed the most thorough and systematic removal of cosmic power in Marvel history, and they did it as preparation, as housekeeping, just making sure nothing would be in the way when the real plan kicked off. And this is the point where the story shifts, because there were 3 people who refused to accept the math: Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, and Owen Reese, the Molecule Man himself. Doctor Doom is, depending on who you ask, Marvel's greatest villain or Marvel's most compelling anti-hero. He is arrogant beyond description, brilliant beyond measure, and has spent his entire career trying to prove that he is the most capable being on Earth. Most of the time, you can write that off as ego. At this particular moment in Marvel history, he was about to prove it. Doom had learned about the Beyonders, had grasped the scale of what was coming, had looked at a threat that made every other threat in Marvel history look like a neighborhood dispute, and had decided with the specific flavor of deranged confidence that only Victor Von Doom is capable of, that he was not going to allow it. His plan was as insane as the threat it was designed to counter. Remember how the Molecule Man was a living bomb, one per universe, engineered by the Beyonders as the mechanism for their plan. Doom realized that meant the Molecule Men were also a potential weapon against the Beyonders themselves. If you could turn them inside out, if you could collect enough of them from enough universes and combine them into a single explosion directed outward instead of inward, at the Beyonders themselves, you might be able to hurt them. Not stop them, not defeat them, just hurt them, just buy a moment. And that's what Doom did. He and the Molecule Man traveled through what was left of the collapsing multiverse, harvesting Molecule Men from dying universes, building a bomb made of the very things the Beyonders had designed to destroy everything. A weapon assembled from the pieces of their own plan turned against them. When Doom, Strange, and the Molecule Man finally confronted the Beyonders directly, it wasn't a superhero battle. will. There were no punches thrown that changed the course of things. The Beyonders were nigh omnipotent beings from outside the structure of reality. You don't beat something like that in a straight fight. What happened instead was a detonation. The Molecule Man bomb went off. The Beyonders were destroyed, or most of them were. As later stories revealed, some survived outside the multiverse. And in the moment of that destruction, the energy of their godlike power was released, and Dr. Doom absorbed it. Doctor Strange looked into that abyss of omnipotence and stepped back from it. By his own later admission, he ran from it. He couldn't hold it, couldn't contain what it would mean to wield that kind of power. Doom did not step back. Doom reached in. What came next is one of the most fascinating sequences in modern Marvel history. With the power of the Beyonders flowing through him, Dr. Doom didn't restore the multiverse. He couldn't. What was destroyed was destroyed. The multiverse was gone. Instead, he took the fragments. Every reality that had survived until that final moment, every pocket of existence that still had something left in it, he gathered them. He stitched them together into a single patchwork world called Battleworld. A planet made of pieces of dead universes held together by the will of a man who had just become a god. And then he ruled it, because of course he did. This is Dr. Doom. Battleworld was a place where different realities crashed into each other across artificial borders. Zones of the planet were ruled by warlords. A corps of Thors served as Doom's enforcers. The Human Torch became the planet's sun. A wall made of Ben Grimm, the Thing, held back waves of zombies, Ultron variants, and worse. And over all of it, as its unquestioned God Emperor, sat Victor Von Doom with the power of beings who had just destroyed the multiverse, doing exactly what you'd expect him to do with infinite power, giving himself Mr. Fantastic's wife and children, because even with the omnipotence of extra-dimensional gods, Doom still had to one-up Reed Richards. But here's what makes the Beyonders story so complete and so devastating as a piece of storytelling. It actually worked. Their plan actually succeeded. The multiverse was actually destroyed. That actually happened in the pages of Marvel Comics. Every universe, including the main Earth 616 that had been running continuously since the 1960s, was annihilated. The Beyonders ran their experiment and it ran correctly. The only reason anything exists afterward is because Dr. Doom was unwilling to let it end, and because Reed Richards, who survived the final incursion on a life raft of his own design, eventually confronted Doom on Battleworld and said the truest thing anyone had ever said to him, that Doom would have done better, that if Doom hadn't been so consumed by insecurity, by his rivalry with Reed, by the need to be seen as the greatest, he would have been. He was always the one with the power. He just never fully believed it. And Doom, standing there with the power of gods, admitted it. For one moment, Victor Von Doom told the truth, and the Molecule Man heard it and transferred the Beyonders' power to Reed Richards instead. Reed used it to rebuild the multiverse. Not piece by piece. All at once, a new multiverse, the 8th cosmos, born from the destruction of the 7th. Every universe restored. Every hero and villain returned to something like where they'd been, though changed in ways that rippled forward into every Marvel story that came after. The Beyonders, looking at the result from their position outside the multiverse, concluded that their experiment was a failure. The multiverse had been restored. Their controlled destruction hadn't held. They changed tactics. Instead of trying to destroy everything, they began working to contain specific threats to specific realities. And Marvel kept going. New stories, new threats, new versions of familiar heroes. But here's what you take away from this. The Beyonders aren't just a powerful villain. They're a statement about scale, about what it actually means to imagine something truly beyond the heroes we love. Thanos wanted power. Galactus wanted sustenance. The Beyonders wanted data. They treated the most complex, richest, most densely populated shared universe in fiction as a petri dish, and they ended it with the same emotional weight as closing a browser tab. They succeeded. They won. The multiverse died because of them. The only reason we still have Marvel Comics is that a god in a metal mask refused to accept the result, and that the smartest man alive had enough left to rebuild everything from nothing. And even after all of that, the Beyonders are still out there, outside the multiverse, watching, running new experiments, deciding whether this version of everything deserves to continue. That's not a threat, that's just Tuesday for the Ivory Kings. If you want more deep dives into the most terrifying corners of Marvel's mythology, stick around. I'll see you in the next one.